Welcome back, students, to the next session of A Horse and Two Goats. We begin from where we left in the last class. The red-faced man wore khaki clothes, evidently a policeman or a soldier. Muni said to himself, "He will chase or shoot if I start running. Some dogs chase only those who run. Oh Shiva, protect me. I don't know why this man should be after me." Meanwhile, the foreigner cried, "Marvelous," again nodding his head. He paced around the statue with his eyes fixed on it. Muni froze for a while, and then fidgeted and tried to edge away. Now the other man suddenly pressed his palms together, smiled, and said, "Namaste, how are you? How do you do?" So we see that this man who got down from the car, he said marvelous, and unfortunately, Muni has no idea what language is he using and what is he trying to say. So for Muni, this is a very crucial time, and he feels that probably he's wearing a khaki cloth, so he would be a soldier or a policeman. And he wanted to run away from that place, but unfortunately he thought that some people or some dogs are dogs who start running after the people who run or escape. So he might be one of those. Now when he was contemplating all this, in the meantime the foreigner looks at something and he again nods his head and he's like, "Marvelous, this is a beautiful statue," and started pacing around that statue. Then he looks at Muni and he gives a smile and says, "Namaste, how do you do?" At which Muni spoke the only English expression he had learned, "Yes, no." Having exhausted his English vocabulary, he started in Tamil. "My name is Muni. These two goats are mine, and no one can gainsay it. Though our village is full of slanders these days, who will not hesitate to say that what belongs to a man doesn't belong to him." So Muni has his own thought pattern and he gives his own explanation. And because he doesn't know English, he exhausted his vocabulary with just two words which he knows as yes and no. And then he introduces himself in Tamil, the language in which he is fluent, and he says that my name is Muni. And because he moves around that statue, so he contemplates that probably he's looking after the goat. And he says that these two belong to me, and nobody can deny that or can contradict that these goats doesn't belong to me. Though there are slanders, though there are rogue people in the village, but still nobody will hesitate and nobody will pause to speak about it. Then he says there are people who do not even hesitate to say what belongs to a man and what doesn't belong to him. The foreigner faithfully looked in the direction indicated by Muni's fingers, gazed for a while at two goats and the rock, and with puzzled expression took out his silver cigarette case and lit a cigarette. Suddenly remembering the courtesies of the season, he asked, "Do you smoke?" No, foreigner looked at the direction at which Muni spoke, that is towards the goat and the goats which are tied to the horse statue. So he looks puzzled, he looks at the two goats and the rock, and he doesn't know what to speak. So in that expression, he takes out his silver cigarette case and lit a cigarette, and suddenly he remembers the courtesies and he asks him, "Do you smoke?" Muni answered, "Yes, no." Now he doesn't understand the language, but still he has the two words which is there in the vocabulary, so he uses yes, no. Whereupon the red-faced man took a cigarette and gave it to Muni, who received it with surprise. Having had no offer of a smoke from anyone for years now he immediately took it because he has not been offered a cigarette to smoke for years now. He had always wanted to smoke a cigarette. Only once did the shopman give him one on credit, and he remembered how good it tasted. The other flicked the lighter open and offered a light to Muni. So the foreigner, he flicked the lighter open and he offered a light to Muni. Muni felt so confused about how to act that he blew on it and put it out. He didn't know how to work with it, so he blew it out. The other, puzzled but undaunted, flourished his lighter, presented it again, and lit Munni's cigarette. The other was little baffled and puzzled, for he didn't know that he had not seen this kind of a lighter, and he's never used it. So he doesn't get discouraged by his attitude. In fact, he goes by and he lights Munni's cigarette again. Munni drew a deep puff and started coughing. It was racking, no doubt, but extremely pleasant. When his cough subsided, he wiped his eyes and took stock of the situation, understanding that the other man was not an inquisitor of any kind. Yet, in order to make sure, he remained wary. That is, though he had come to know that he was not a kind of inquisitor, or he's not the kind of person he was thinking of, but still he maintained a little distance from this man. He contemplates and he says, no need to run away from a man who gave him such a potent smoke. His head was reeling from the effect of one of those strong American cigarettes made with roasted tobacco. So his head was actually experiencing nauseatic, and he was kind of enjoying this roasted tobacco. The man said, I come from New York, took out a wallet from his hip pocket and presented his card. So the man gave him his identity, that what he was and from where he had dropped in. Munni shrank away from the card. Perhaps he was trying to present a warrant and arrest him. Now Munni was in a different frame of mind. He had not seen any of the visitors coming so near to him and communicating with him. But here, when he's given a card, he thinks that it is a warrant or an arrest card for him. Beware of Khaki, one part of his mind warned. Take all the cigarettes or whatever is offered, but don't get caught. Beware of Khaki. He wished he weren't 70, as the shopkeeper had said. At 71, didn't run, but surrendered to whatever came. He could only ward off trouble by talking. So he went on, all in the chaste Tamil for which Kritham was famous. He said, before God, sir, Bhagwan, who sees everything, I tell you, sir, that we know nothing of the case. If the murder was committed, whoever did it will not escape. Bhagwan is all-seeing. Don't ask me about it, I know nothing. Now Munni has his own thought pattern. He is, because he doesn't understand English, he is not able to comprehend who the person is, that he is a tourist and a foreigner, and he has no connection with the police or the soldier. And in his mind, in which he already has a perception, this is man who's come to arrest and to find out who the murderer was, or who did the criminal act in the village. He went on saying whatever he knew, trying to clear out his own self. A body had been found, mutilated and thrown under a tamarind tree at the border. So he says that he had seen a body lying mutilated, dirty, and thrown away under the tamarind tree which lies near the border between Kritham and Kuppam a few weeks before, giving rise to much gossip and speculation. Munni added an explanation. Anything is possible there. People over there will stop at nothing. The foreigner nodded his head and listened courteously, though he understood nothing. I'm sure you know when this horse was made, said the red man, and smiled ingratiatingly. Now the man has something else in mind, and he doesn't understand what Munni speaks and what is he trying to communicate. With his mind pattern, he was enjoying the beauty of the statue, and he asks this man, I'm sure you would know, when was this horse made? Munni reacted to the relaxed atmosphere by smiling himself and pleaded, please go away, sir. I know nothing. I promise we'll hold him for you if we see any bad character around, and we'll bury him up to his neck in a coconut pit if he tries to escape. But our village has always had a clean record, but definitely be the other village. Now he keeps on giving his own explanation. and he speaks all in Tamil, so he's not able to clear out what this man wants and what is he contemplating. Now the red man implored, "Please, please, I'll speak slowly. Please try to understand me. Can't you understand even a simple word of English? Everyone in this country seems to know English. I've gotten along with English everywhere in this country, but you don't speak it. Have you any religious or spiritual scruples against English speech?" Now the red man is trying his hard to speak and communicate with this man. So he says, "Please, can I ask you to speak in English? I'll speak slowly." It seems that everybody understands English in this country, but it seems as if you do not understand it. Do you have any kind of prejudice, or are you biased against any religious or spiritual scruples against English speech? Muni made some indistinct sounds in his throat and shook his head. Encouraged, the other went on to explain at length, uttering each syllable with care and deliberation. Presently, he sidled over and took a seat beside the old man, explaining, "You see, last August we probably had the hottest summer in history. I was working in shirt sleeves in my office on the 40th floor of the Empire State Building. We had a power failure one day, and there I was stuck for 4 hours. No elevator, no air conditioning. All the way in the train, I kept thinking, and the minute I reached home in Connecticut, I told my wife Ruth, we will visit India this winter. It's time to look at other civilizations." Next day, she called the travel agent first thing and told him to fix it, so here I am. Ruth came with me, but she's staying back at Srinagar, and I'm the one doing rounds and joining her later. Now he explains us all the plan, from where he had come, what he was doing, and how he contemplates to see the new civilization in the other part of the world, and how his wife has accompanied him and come to India, but she's staying in Srinagar while he's doing the rounds around the country. We need to understand, because there are cultural differences. So definitely there's a climatic difference also in the two countries. So she's not able to take the tropical heat, so she stays in the colder place like Srinagar. Muni looked reflective at the end of this long oration and said rather feebly, "Yes, no." He doesn't understand it. He again comes with his expression, "Yes, no," as a concession to the other's language, and went on in Tamil. "When I was this high," he indicated, "a foot high, I had heard my uncle say." Now he says that when I was this high, I had heard my uncle say. No one can tell what he was planning to say, as the other interrupted him at this stage to ask, "Boy, what is the secret of your teeth? How old are you?" Now he asks him again that what is the secret of your teeth and how old are you? Muni forgot what he had started to say and remarked, "Sometimes we too lose our cattle." Now he goes a different way and in different direction. "Jackals or cheetahs may sometimes carry them off, but sometimes it is just theft from over in the next village. Then we'll know who has done it. Our priest at the temple can see in the camphor flame the face of the thief, and when he's caught." He gestured with his hand, a perfect mincing of meat. So he has his own expression, and he thinks about that, and he thinks about how this man is going about and what is he doing and what is he saying around in this time. With this, we come end to this session. We'll continue with the next session the next day. Thank you.